Chapter 37. Erin Simpkins was exhausted. She plopped down in a worn leather chair and visually examined the sweat and blood streaking across the front of her scrub top. Its swirling dark red patterns caused her to go deeper in thought. Tonight she had touched so many lives, aided so many families. The L train derailment was like no crisis she had ever experienced. The types of traumas she had witnessed during the 37-hour stint at the hospital put all of the cardiothoracic surgeon's previous ER experience to shame. Nothing could compare to this night. Her mind flashed to images of a smashed skull with soft brain matter pushing through fractured cracks. She thought of a phone cell embedded in the chest of a man thrown from his seat and into a metal door of a train. She relived the visual horror of a woman propelled from the train's platform and catapulted into a barbed wire fence. The twisted, gnarling metallic strands were so entangled in her face and limbs that it took multiple surgeons to extract the razor-sharp metal from her body. The woman was definitely going to need the attention of their new plastic surgeon, Cobra Dillon. Those were only a few of the critically wounded victims fighting for their lives. It did not include the fatalities, the children playing on adjacent streets near the elevated train before it jumped the tracks. She'd heard of stories about how passenger cars had sailed through the air for blocks before crashing into the street below. Some of the victims had been crushed beyond recognition upon impact. Others were still trapped under the weight of the train cars, which buried them deep within the crumbling black tarmac. The emergency paramedics, which were the first initial responders, the Philadelphia firefighters, and police department were still at the site, actively searching for and recovering survivors. The volunteers were coming in from every area of Pennsylvania. Other counties were rushing to the aid of their neighboring Philadelphia. The term, the city of brotherly love, could be applied to all of them, as well as its namesake. Penn's Landing Memorial Hospital was full. It was at capacity. But during such a tragedy, the hospital refused to turn any patients away. It used office spaces, conference rooms, makeshift triage areas for those persons who were not severely injured. Erin's mind roamed over the faces of the numerous deceased. She had pronounced many of them dead long after they'd expired. It was a formality which needed to be done, although the time of death was an estimation determined upon the arrival of the bodies at Penn's Landing Memorial Hospital's ER. Although life had clearly left many of the casualties at the scene of the accident. The physical condition and the states of the bodies assisted in determining the cause of death written on each certificate. Autopsies would be performed on some of the victims, but for the most part, the deaths would be uncontested, unquestioned. Dr. Erin Simpkins chilled at the thought. She put in long hours, but hadn't worked the shifts consecutively. That would have been against hospital policy. However, she had been on her feet performing surgeries and assisting wherever she could during the hours she was permitted to work. She slept 5-hour intervals between shifts, and then she was at it again. She was definitely sleep deprived. That could be her only excuse for lounging in the chair in the break room when she so desperately needed a shower. What other reason did she have for ignoring the stains on the pale blue uniform top or tuning out the sounds all around her? Erin grabbed the edges of her shirt, pulled it carefully over her head while avoiding any contact with the soiled material, and tossed it aimlessly across the room. She didn't care where it landed. She leaned slowly back in the chair, wearing only a bra and scrub pants. She pulled a nearby blanket from another chair and wrapped it around her. She needed to rest. She wasn't scheduled to leave the hospital until the next group of surgeons arrived. Erin Simpkins felt her head lean into the side of the chair as she closed her eyes. She was too tired to fight the sleep. She longed for it. She didn't want to think anymore. She didn't want to relive the tragedy of the train crash again.